Greetings, Bat Family, and welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Make sure you visit our website, holybatcast.com, or find us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast, you'll find us. And if you love the show and you want to help support us, you can do that on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. And as always, a big thank you to our patrons. You guys are awesome, and I got a new patron to give a shout out to, Mr. Cajun Mike Irish. Hey, Mike. It seems like his real name is Mike Ortego, but I like Cajun Mike Irish better. You know, he sounds like he could be a Batman villain, but like a really fun one. Mike, thank you so much for pledging, for being a patron. That is awesome. And this one's for you. So it's really it's morning. It is very much appreciated. That's the words. And so thank you to Mike, and thank you to all our patrons. You guys are awesome. So, it's a great way to support the show. You know, $1 a month is only like 25 cents an episode, and it's a way to show your support. So we certainly appreciate that. We're also part of the Real Fans Podcast Network. You can check out all those shows at rf4rm.com. And as always, I'm your Bat host, Andy DiGenova. You can find me on Twitter, on Instagram, or on Letterboxd at Andy DiGenova. This episode, it's actually one we promised on the last episode. Look at that. Keeping our word for once. So we talked about just about a year ago was the release of the animated movie Catwoman Hunted, and it's kind of a quiet week. And so we're like, all right, let's check it off the list. So we're going to talk about the animated film Catwoman Hunted. We are also going to review the next episode of The Batman, because we got to stick to that as well. And joining me for all that fun is one of our regulars and a special guest. So first of all, that regular, he's just finished his breakfast. He's ready to go. It's Jamie Drewley. Hey, Jamie.
I'm sorry. I was just observing a moment of silence for the Charger fans.
Okay.
I'm petty. Good morning, everyone. How's it going?
I just want to say that for all the Charger fans out there, I think you guys are great. Don't listen to Jamie.
You can't say that when you're in the presence of a Raiders fan. It doesn't work, man.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. I mean, I have a real issue because, you know, I don't really have a lot of loyalty, but as growing up in Chicago, I'm just like naturally loyal to the Bears. And so that means I'm not supposed to like the Packers. And I have friends who are Packers fans, and it always feels a little weird.
Oh, I have lots of friends that are fans of opposing teams. It's okay to have that, because then you have that good-natured fun and ribbing and trash talk that goes on among them. So that's part of the fun of being a sports fan, I think.
Oh, that's good. I don't participate in that because I wouldn't know. I'd just be like, yeah, great. You know, well, welcome back.
Good to be here.
Good to have you. We also have a special guest. I mentioned I actually have a list of patrons who are owed a spot on the show. And the first one here is Mr. Justin Tobin. Justin's been actually a friend of the show for a long time. So nice to actually finally hear your voice. And it was a fun surprise to learn that you are from my neck of the woods out in Illinois. So hi, Justin. Welcome to Holy BatCast.
Hello, Andy and Jamie. I appreciate you having me on. This is pretty cool for me in general. So it's pretty awesome.
Well, good. Just remember, this time when you hear us talking, it's live and you have to talk back.
I will do my best.
Yeah, that's what we get a lot, is they're like, oh, I just start listening as if it's an episode. Yeah. Nope, this is in real time. Well, it is great to have you. Tell us a little bit about your Batman fandom and your favorite Batman movie and why.
Well, the fandom, a lot of people, I grew up, I'm born in 83, so growing up, Batman 89 wasn't really my thing at the time, but Batman the Animated Series was where I obviously got introduced to it. That was my whole, watching the cartoons in the morning stuff for me basically when I got home from school for that, and then X-Men the Animated Series and Spider-Man, but Batman was always my favorite character, and the animated series was always my favorite, and that's how it got me into some comics, but I mainly am a graphic novel guy just because I like the full story at once. But that's how I got into it. My favorite movie, it depends on the day. Sometimes it's Batman Begins, sometimes it's The Dark Knight, and sometimes it's BVS. I can't control it. It just depends on that day on how you ask me. Right today, it's Batman Begins.
All right. No, those are, three good choices. Can't go wrong. At least I don't think so. Other people might disagree, but well, that's cool. All right. Awesome. Well, great to have you. We love it. We're going to talk some Catwoman, and they're therefore Batman by extension. Before we get to that, though, we got to give a shout out to our sponsors over at Manscaped at manscaped.com. It is a new year, the whole new year, new you, and maybe the new you this new year is about improving your grooming habits. It's about trimming it up. It's about new deodorant or new shampoo and body wash. But Manscaped has you covered. They got everything that you need to knock up your grooming game. And the great thing is that they've been nice enough to offer us a promo code, so that way any listeners of Holy BatCast get 20% off and free shipping. That promo code, you probably already know it. It is Batscaped. So go to manscaped.com, do a little shopping, see what they've got. The trimmer, the best trimmer on the market. Battery lasts a really long time. It doesn't nick you. It doesn't cut you. It has a really handy dandy LED light. I use it all the time. They got good deodorant. They have a new cologne. They've got a new scrubber. They've got, anything that you need as far as grooming. And go there, check it out. If anything jumps out at you, anything looks like it could be helpful, make that purchase. But please use that promo code BATSCAPED for 20% off and free shipping. We would certainly appreciate that. They would appreciate that. And I think you will appreciate that. You and your loved ones, they want you smelling good. You want to smell good. And Manscaped will help you do that. And right now, we're also in the middle of winter. Right here in Florida, it is a chilling 40 degrees. Chilling. And for anyone else out there, this is also chapless lip season. And Jamie and I have told you in the past, the lip balm from Manscaped is awesome. Check that out too. So go ahead, go do some shopping at manscaped.com and use that promo code BATSCAPED for your discount, and you're supporting Holy BatCast while you're also helping yourself. So everybody wins.
Yeah,
so we
so
appreciate it.
If I can throw my endorsement in here.
Yes, you can.
I really, really like that scrubber. I find it very useful and does its job extremely well. And they sent me the cologne along with the scrubber. And I have not worn cologne since I was in high school, or maybe just after high school. So it's never my thing. But I know this is a family show, so I'm not going to give any details. But let me just say, my wife really likes that cologne. So, for whatever that's worth out there.
Well, that's good. Catherine likes it as well. I started wearing it since they sent it to me. And again, much like the body wash and much like the deodorant, like the smell is like very nice, but mild. Like it's not too much, which is always my fear with especially with like men's products, is they go a little too heavy on the cologne smell. And this, they found like a really nice clean balance. So same here.
Yeah. None of their stuff is overwhelming or obnoxious, and I really appreciate that. And apparently my wife does too. So
great. Awesome. So go check out manscaped.com. Use that promo code BATSCAPED. That would be awesome. But now we're going to go check in with Catwoman. We're going to go back nearly a year and talk about the animated film Catwoman Hunted.
Watched it yesterday.
Attaboy. I did too. It took 2 sittings because babies, they ruin everything. But I did watch it yesterday. Catwoman Hunted was released on February 8th of 2022. Directed by Shinsuke Terasawa. So at least for an anime-flavored DC movie, they got someone Japanese to direct it. It was written by Greg Weisman, and it features the vocal performances of Elizabeth Gillies as Catwoman, Stephanie Beatriz as Batwoman, Jonathan Banks is Black Mask, Steve Blum is, spoiler, Solomon Grundy, Keith David's Tobias Whale, Lauren Cohan, Julia Pennyworth, and Jonathan Frakes as King Faraday.
That one threw me off.
Me too. As soon as I heard that voice, I was like, I know that voice. Why do I know that voice? And sure enough, Mr. Jonathan Frakes himself. So anyway, like I said, it came out almost a year ago, last February. It is anime style as far as the animation goes, and it's time to dive into it. We'll start spoiler free, give our overall thoughts. Well, actually, let me give you a quick synopsis just for those who haven't watched it. I think it is still available on HBO Max. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. We planned it that way. Yeah, just to make it easier on everybody. So it's on HBO Max. It's 1 hour and 18 minutes. So it's still that pretty standard length for something like this. And Catwoman finds herself, as always, in the middle of a heist. The whole opening is like this big heist trying to get this cat's eye emerald. She gets chased down, eventually escapes, and as she escapes, though, she finds herself in the crosshairs of Barbara Minerva and Black Mask and a whole bunch of other bad guys. And she is working with Batwoman reluctantly, as well as the agents, Julia Pennyworth and King Faraday. And basically, like, if you help us, if you make yourself a target and help distract them so we can find them, then all the warrants for your arrest will be wiped out. And so now she's a reluctant partner with Batwoman and with these agents to try and stop Barbara Minerva and therefore Black Mask and the entire Leviathan organization. And so through that, she runs into a lot of people, has lots of close calls, lots of fights, and is helping them, but at the same time helping herself. But they run into, she ends up fighting Cheshire. She ends up, like I mentioned, Solomon Grundy ends up showing up. A lot of DC villains throughout. And in the end, Catwoman, of course, successfully survives, helps stop Barbara Minerva, and goes off on her own and realizes that maybe she was kind of playing all angles the whole time. So, spoiler-free reactions. I guess we'll start with Jamie.
So,
I've already been a little, you already tipped your hand a little to me yesterday.
yeah, a little. So, again, I'm not a big fan of anime, the styling of anime, the choices made in anime. It's always very bold, very, sometimes over the top. And this is another one of those films. I'm really glad it exists for the people that are into that sort of thing, but it doesn't necessarily appeal to my personal tastes and sensibilities. So I don't think I got out of this what I would have hoped I would have, but I guess I'm not really terribly surprised. I wasn't a huge fan of it. I think they made a lot of very bold choices. I think a couple of them worked. I don't think all of them worked. Actually, I don't think most of them worked in my case. But I thought the voice cast was mostly excellent. Elizabeth Gillies, I know her because my daughters were absolutely obsessed with the show Victorious while it was on, and she was one of the main cast members of that. So I thought she did a really nice job as Catwoman. I thought she did great. Uh, Keith David, I can never go wrong with him. I'm a big fan of his voice work, acting, all of it. That there was some choices with the villains that I thought were pretty cool, but eventually I got to the point where I was just like, okay, this is kind of too much for me. Like, just I almost felt overwhelmed by some of it at some point. It's just people that are into anime, I guess that's really a big thing with it where stuff gets that crazy. But like Batman Ninja, the whole giant monkeys thing at the end of that, like, that was so bizarre and crazy. But for people that are into that really worked, and for me it didn't. And in this case, it's going to kind of be a repeat of that, I'm afraid.
All right. So I forgot to mention also that Kirby Howell Baptiste is Barbara Minerva, and I saw her picture and I was like, why do I know her? And it's because she played Death on The Sandman.
Oh,
which is one of the best episodes of that show, by the way, if you haven't watched it. All right, Justin, what about you? What are your overall thoughts of Catwoman Hunted?
Well, it started off, the musical stylings reminded me of Cowboy Bebop, and it was funny for me. I heard Steve Bloom as one of the guys who let Black Mask into the event, but I don't like the CGI 3D effect that they do a lot of times, and it throws me off when I watch it. I do like just straight up 2D animation for everything when it's supposed to be animated. That's what I prefer. So that always throws me off. Overall, I thought it was okay. Jonathan Banks' Black Mask kind of, it just, I know his mouth wasn't moving, but it still felt like it didn't do a good job for some reason. But I like him in everything else he's in. But it's just weird. And then it felt like there were 3 false endings throughout the movie, which again was kind of strange, but it happens. And overall, it was okay. But other than that, nothing overly outstanding.
Okay. Now, are you an anime guy? Because you mentioned
Yes.
Cowboy Bebop.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
okay, that's interesting. That's actually that works out because me and Jamie are not big anime guys, and so it's nice to have someone who's a little more well versed in it to see if this maybe work better.
Yeah. I mean, stylings, I guess. I mean, Steve Bloom played Spike Spiegel for Cowboy Bebop, and so hearing his voice in this was kind of fun. And the jazz instrumentals in the beginning was what kind of popped my brain for that, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
you know, they still did this. There's something different than standard, Japanimation stuff with that CGI 3D stuff. You know, it just especially during the the chase sequence. You know, it
Mm-hmm.
just always throws me off when I watch an anime like that.
Got it.
I
Yeah.
really thought that kinetic jazz score throughout was an interesting choice, and I didn't
Yeah.
hate it, but it was unique. It was I don't know why that choice was made, but it was interesting and certainly original. I mean, I can't think of again. I don't watch much anime, so my son would be more qualified to talk about it than I would. But I thought it was an interesting choice.
Yeah, it perked my ears up personally, but yeah, it was it kind of they did a good job, I think, for score throughout it, kind of, but that part really got me going, but I got let down a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. The music was done by Yutaka Yamada, and I agree with you guys. It was very distinctive. It was that interesting jazzy, almost throwback score throughout. But I agree. It certainly is unexpected, but I thought it really added to it personally. I just thought it gave the whole thing a very noirish, old school femme fatale vibe, which is obviously what they were going for with Catwoman. So it is a little off the beaten path, but as far as I was concerned, I thought it worked pretty well. Um, so interesting, and I tipped my hand a little bit when we did our year end. Is I was surprised how much I liked this, especially because, as we've said, not a big anime guy, but I'm not like just because I'm not into it doesn't mean I'm opposed to it. Which is an important distinction to make because you assume, oh, if you don't like it you must hate it, and that's not it. It's just not my thing, but I have nothing against it. But knowing that they were going in that route, in that direction for this, it certainly managed my expectations when it was coming out, where I was like, this one's probably not going to be for me, but I'll still watch it because it's even Batman. Even though Batman's not in it, it's firmly got its foot in the Batman universe with Catwoman and Batwoman and Black Mask, etc. And then when I watched it, I was pleasantly surprised. I actually liked it way more than I expected to. I appreciated that, and maybe it was just because I didn't really watch any trailers or anything beforehand. I really liked how many characters popped up and were a part of the story. Because if you look at the cover art, you think it's just Catwoman and Batwoman versus Black Mask. That's what they really were selling. And that's not the case. There's a lot more to it, and I appreciated that about it. I thought the animation, it certainly is anime, yes, but I didn't find it to be inaccessible for non-anime fans the way Batman Ninja was. Like, I feel like Batman Ninja was so far into that if you're not into it, you're just not into it. Where this, I feel like even if you're not an anime person, you could still enjoy the movie for the most part. There is one scene where they do go over the top anime, and we'll get to it, I'm sure. And I was like, oh, okay, there it is. Where some stuff happens where you're like, what? Where did this come from? This is just a little bizarre. But aside from that one sequence, I thought that even though it was anime styled, it was still a very watchable Catwoman movie. I liked the character work. I liked how much of the DC universe they were able to incorporate. And knowing that it was written by Greg Weisman makes a lot of sense. I love him. He was the showrunner, producer, writer of Young Justice, and y'all know how much I love Young Justice. So to know that he wrote this makes a lot of sense. So yeah, I liked it, and I don't think it's perfect. There's the one sequence that's weird. And I also think that it's going to sound weird, but there's almost too much action where it's like at a certain point you need a break. Some of the fights, and especially you mentioned the car chase, they just go on so long where you're like,
Yep.
okay, let's be done and get a little more story in here. So, and again, maybe that's the anime thing of like, no, we came for the fights and we're going to give you fights and fights and fights. And that's fine. But at a certain point, it gets a little exhausting. But that aside, I think they did a great job with making it a Catwoman story and to show how she is doing things for herself, and then she has her own agenda, and then what does it look like when she has to partner up with some reluctant allies? In general, I enjoyed it. And maybe those managed expectations help, like going in, it's probably not going to be for me. I was like, oh, actually, it was solid. I enjoyed it. As opposed to going in thinking, oh, it's going to be the greatest thing ever. Then that's maybe a tougher thing to live up to. So I dug it. I don't know how much I will go back to it, but for me, it was a nice surprise.
I don't even think I knew this was like an anime until you mentioned it after you watched it the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because I never saw any trailers or anything like that. And if you look at the cover art and stuff, it doesn't really give you that indication. At least I didn't pick that up.
No, the cover art does not. You are correct. It looks just like a pretty standard animated one. But when they announced this, that was the big hook, as they were like, oh, and it's an animated Catwoman movie. So, but that was a while ago. So I would understand if especially Jamie, you're not a big Catwoman fan anyway. So this wasn't one you were probably paying much attention to.
No, but Batwoman, I'm a big fan of hers. So her addition to it, I was like, well, maybe this is worth me checking out. I was going to watch it regardless because, the show and, DC animated movies, I tend to watch pretty much all of them anyway. But here's the problem with Batwoman for me. And I don't know the person who was voicing Batwoman. That I read the name in the cast list and I wasn't familiar with it. But what's the name of the woman who voices Ivy on the Harley Quinn show? Is it Lake Bell?
Yes.
Batwoman in this almost seemed like it was Lake Bell's Lake Bell's Ivy before her morning coffee. Like it was really bizarre and kind of off-putting for me, the choice made in the voice performance for Batwoman in this. So
it was, I mean, I didn't mind it, but it is not exactly what you would expect. I do feel like it was deeper. And the actress is Stephanie Beatriz. She's most famous for Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but she was also Maribel in Encanto.
Yeah, neither of those are my thing. So,
but that's fair. I mean, I do think her voice was, again, it was a little different than what I think you would expect.
Yeah. And again, that's kind of a big detractor for me because going in, Batwoman was the thing I was looking forward to the most and maybe the thing that I liked the least, at least as far as the voice performance was concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Like the character and the action with her and how she was used, that was all fine. I was put off by it, I guess is the only way I can really say it.
Yeah. Okay.
I've started having problems in things like this with normal actors doing voiceover work. Sometimes they get to it, like Keith David's been good for a long time, but sometimes actors come and do this and it just doesn't click. And that is rough for me to listen to sometimes because it just feels like there's no the momentum's probably the wrong word, but
energy. I think energy is probably the right
cadence and things like that. It just doesn't seem to fit properly, but it's all a learning process for them too. So, but
again, throwing more positive at it, I think Elizabeth Gillies sounded like she was having a fantastic time in this part.
She did really good.
Great job.
Agreed. No, she was amazing. I really loved her. And I think that was part of why I liked the movie so much is I just feel like they nailed the characterization of Catwoman and her personality. And I think Elizabeth Gillies' performance is has a lot to do with that. It's just, she has so much fun playing with Catwoman and being dangerous, but being flirty and messing with people. And I thought she was great.
I agree.
Although I have to question the choice of, instead of her having like some kind of an internal monologue, she's literally just talking out loud.
She talks to herself.
The movie. Yeah. That was kind of odd, but I'm going to chalk that up to maybe more of that anime persona, if you will. It just, I don't watch enough anime to know what's commonplace and what isn't in a lot of cases. So I don't know if that's like an anime thing where characters just kind of go around talking to themselves, but it was a choice. I'll give them that.
I mean, I don't even think it's uncommon in movies, when you have characters who are by themselves. I mean, one of my favorite movies of all, Die Hard. John McClane spends the whole time talking to himself before he meets Reginald Bell Johnson. So it's just fair. It's a movie thing, where it's like, if it's character alone, that's what they do.
I feel like there was a little more restraint with it in Die Hard, but I get your point.
And then you mentioned Jonathan Banks, who I didn't know him by name until I clicked on him, and I'm like, oh yeah, that guy. I know that guy.
That dude's been in everything.
Yes,
Even if you don't know his name, I guarantee you know his face. And obviously, what most people nowadays are going to recognize or know him from is Breaking Bad and those series there. Yeah.
Exactly.
And he's great in that, and I really like him. But it's everything, man. If you go back and watch stuff like from the early to mid '80s, he's in so much stuff back then. Like I think maybe the original Beverly Hills Cop, he was in it, and I didn't realize that until I was rewatching those like 3 years ago that he was in them. So yeah, he's been around.
Yeah, and so I understand Justin's point. I think that Jonathan Banks is very good as Black Mask, but I think that he's just a much more subdued Black Mask than what we've come to expect.
Could be, yeah.
And I think that's it. He plays it a lot quieter and subtler than something like Under the Red Hood, where he's very over the top and screaming the whole time, or even the live action version in Birds of Prey. Those are much more larger than life interpretations of Black Mask, and this is a much quieter, more calculating version. And I think that's okay. I think there's room for both.
And with an anime, you make these bold choices throughout that they did with this particular movie, and to have a character that's traditionally recognized as being unhinged and over the top, and playing him as subdued as he is, it was a strange choice. Like there's a lot of things I'm just going to call strange choices throughout this conversation, and that was certainly one for me.
Is that what they should have called it? Catwoman, Strange Choices?
Yeah, I think that might have been more appropriate.
All right. Anyway, let's get over the spoiler wall just so we can speak more freely. So Catwoman Hunted, I guess your mileage may vary. For me, it was a nice surprise, but it didn't work as well for Jamie. Justin, you seem kind of in between.
Yeah.
All right, and that's fair. And again, and I guess I should clarify, like, nice surprise doesn't mean, oh my God, it's amazing, you gotta see it. It's more like, oh yeah, it was fun. I had fun with it. So it's, but check it out. It's on HBO Max, especially if you're an anime fan. I think you'll like it. But again, even as a non-anime fan, I thought there was enough to enjoy, but we are going to speak freely. So the spoiler warning is in effect in 3, 2, 1.
Okay, I'm just going to step up and do what I always do. So let me talk about what I always talk about. My favorite part of this movie was actually the very beginning. The costume ball with all of the DC Easter eggs thrown in was so much fun.
I agree. I love that. And I do think that's a great foot to step off. And that's why I was like, oh, I think I like this. Because, what a fun nod. And the fact that she shows up in the classic Catwoman costume.
That was so great.
That was nice.
Like, what a great touch to build that in. Is that's how she shows up at the masquerade ball. And then she changes.
Yeah, I just coming into the movie that's where you pretty much start off at. I was thinking to myself, oh, this is going to be a really good time. They're going to have a lot of fun with this, and you see all the different costumes of various characters. I mean, I can't even begin to name all of them that showed up, but I mean, you recognize pretty much everyone that you see, and I got to figure the writers and or animators were just having a really good time mixing in whatever they could there, and I really appreciated that portion.
Yeah, and then you got a costume party. You could have anybody show up as anything, so it really wouldn't matter.
Yep, agreed. So no, I love the whole opening. Like, I think it's a great way to start the movie. It's the costume ball. She shows up in the classic outfit. She comes in as Black Mask's date to get in, which I think is super fun. Again, I think they do a really good job of having Catwoman manipulate everyone around her. And just the fact that throughout the party, she's flirting with everyone is pretty fun too. It's very her. And the whole initial heist, I really enjoyed. That then led into the first big action sequence. But that's when it goes into the car chase. And that was one of my things where I was like, man, this car chase goes on forever. And if people who love car chases, maybe that's their bag, but I just was like, okay, guys, let's be done. Because it's really long, right?
I thought it was over, and then they ended up in a village, and there's even more. So
it's so long, but up until then, I love it. Like, again, as a big introductory set piece to really show who Catwoman is and kick off the story of what she's after. It's really well done. And I think there's good action in there. I think the fighting, the fact that eventually everyone in this party turns against her and she has to escape is all really fun stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to refrain from being too negative because I had such a magnificent day yesterday, and I don't want to bring myself down from it. But and this is probably going to be a hot take for a lot of people, but I haven't had a car chase overstay its welcome that badly since Ready Player One.
Okay.
Go back and listen to the Real Fans episode on that. I have all my feelings about that on display. So,
all right. But yeah, and I also thought it was kind of a stroke of genius to pit Catwoman against Barbara Minerva. That was unexpected. Like I said, I don't remember that in any of the marketing. It's certainly not on the cover art. The cover art makes you think it's all going to be Black Mask. And I just think it's a really fun idea to be like Catwoman versus essentially another Catwoman against the cheetah. And I really liked that. And then the fact that they also brought in Cheshire. And so they had 3 Catwomen. I appreciated the cleverness of that. And then overall, as I was saying, what I loved is that it's not just Catwoman and Batwoman versus Black Mask, but there's the Cheetah, there's Solomon Grundy, there's Nosferatu, who I'm not familiar with, but I looked it up and yep, she's a thing.
Is she an older? I mean, is she a relatively new character? Because
that's what I thought, especially based on when she said, "I'm new," something like that. But it seems like the first version of her showed up in 1986.
Huh.
So, but she's obviously a pretty minor character as far as DC goes, because I wasn't familiar with her either. But
let me show you what a magnificently dedicated DC fan I am.
Okay.
You guys are going to laugh at this. They said the name Barbara Minerva. I'm like, why do I know that name? Who is that? That name sounds so familiar to me. And until she morphed at the end of the movie, I never figured it out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was apparently asleep at the wheel as I was watching this or something, because I was like, oh yeah, Cheetah.
Yeah.
And also Nosferatu, I thought was a Marvel character. That's how bad I am.
Oh man. Well, you're fired.
Well, there was a She-Hulk comic series that ran in the late 80s, early 90s that I read just about every month that I enjoyed. It's kind of like Deadpool, there's a lot of satire involved with it. And I feel like Nosferatu was one of the people that she fought in that.
Well, maybe it's the Marvel version and she's called something similar, but because, almost every character has a version on both sides of the street. Yep. But I mean, Talia al Ghul shows up. Like, I love that they really make it a DC Universe movie. And I feel like for the most part, I never felt that it was overstuffed. I feel like as these characters showed up, it all worked for me. So again, that was a nice surprise.
Yeah, I liked how Talia was basically everything in the background.
Yeah.
She's the one that's actually in charge and, just let Minerva take the lead per se.
Yeah, for sure. And Jamie, you weren't excited when Solomon Grundy showed up? First, I thought he looked great. I loved how he looked. I thought he was cool as hell.
The stuff with Grundy was fine. I'm not sure I appreciated his air quote demise so much, but
dynamite in the mouth.
Yeah. So yeah, everything with him I feel was done pretty well. Although they kept skipping parts of his little poem thing, and I thought that was kind of weird. It's like he's walking around, he's reciting it, and they skip like 3 days in it almost each time he says it. And I was like, that's so odd to do it that way, but choices.
All right. And I also thought it was a fun and random idea that they're flying around in this private jet, and this is where Catwoman is with Batwoman and the 2 agents, and they're kind of explaining their whole plan. And I love that they're like, oh yeah, this was the Penguin's plane that we confiscated, and so now we're using it. I just thought that was a nice touch and pretty cool.
Catch that.
Yeah, that's why there was like a neon parasol on the wall, and there wasn't much else to it. Like they didn't go, I couldn't remember if Penguin showed up. He does not, but yeah, the fact that they're flying around in the Penguin's plane was fun too.
So Andy, I just sent you a picture. You can have a look at that so I'm not crazy.
Is this the She-Hulk Nosferatu?
Yes.
All right, let's see here. Oh, okay, all right. She looks like a cross between Nosferatu and Batwoman.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, but she has the same name.
Yes.
Maybe DC bought the character or something.
Interesting. I wonder what year this
plans.
Huh. Well, doesn't that just figure?
That had to have been around maybe 90, 91, I want to say, when that book came out. But yeah, just so you know, I'm not a psycho. There was a Nosferatu in Marvel.
The more you know. That's interesting. Yeah, according to this DC wiki, she's been in DC since 1986. So take that as you will, you know. Anyway, getting back to the movie. I guess because I brought it up earlier, I'll mention it here. Is the part where I thought they went full anime, where I was like, and you kind of lost me. Is there's a moment where Minerva brings Black Mask and to essentially this council who are all part of Leviathan and says, hey, you know, he's going to be a part of us, and he brought his entry fee, which was this emerald, and they let him in. And so it's these three or four other crime bosses who were there. And it's like, okay, like I don't know who any of those people are. Are they in the comics? Maybe. I don't know any of them. So they're not all that important. But, you know, as the different fights happen, there's a certain point where Catwoman and Batwoman end up in that room with all those crime bosses. And then they all of them have powers, which is okay. Like if that's what you want to do, but like their powers are just so anime and just seem to be out of nowhere. Like one of them turns into a freaking Robotech. And what, you know, then the other ones like conjure up demons and ghosts and creatures and things. And so that was the part where I was like, okay, this is the anime part, which is just bonkers. And I'll go with you for a certain extent, but because this felt like it came out of nowhere and these powers felt so out of place in this world, that was the part where I went, okay, this is the part where they went just one step too far for me.
I fully agree with you, but I want to acknowledge credit where due. How Batwoman dealt with those two demons, I thought was pretty darn funny.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
She said, go back. Okay. And then they go.
And then she makes the disclaimer of, you know, the problem with demons is the high level ones are like too hard to control and the low level ones are, you know, dumber than a box of rocks or whatever dialogue she said. But yeah, I got a good kick out of that. I'll give that much credit.
Oh yeah. I completely agree with you. I think that's a nice touch. And it's funny because prior to this, and this is where I said like, maybe there's a little too much action. It's like they go from this fight between Catwoman and Cheshire that then becomes a fight between Catwoman, Cheshire, Batwoman, and Nosferatu, which that I thought was really fun, which is like a Catwoman versus a Catwoman and a Batwoman versus a Batwoman. I really liked that. But that's a very extended fight, but I liked it. I thought it was a good fight. But then from that, they immediately go into that fight with the crime bosses. And then when that's over, there's like one quick beat where Catwoman's like, all right, peace out. And then she's sitting on the Eiffel Tower being like, all right, well, what next? I guess this is a good consolation prize. And then a bunch of ninjas show up.
I thought that's where it was going to end.
Yeah.
Right there, I thought that's what was it. And then there was like 25 more minutes.
Right. And then 52 ninjas show up. And I do appreciate the magic number of DC being 52.
Yeah.
And so then Catwoman and Batwoman fight 52 ninjas. And they do a Legolas Gimli contest, which I appreciate. And that one felt at least like the right length because it wasn't, you know, we didn't have to see every single one of them. But then from there, it goes straight into dropping down Solomon Grundy and Cheetah. So it's like one fight after another.
And that's where I thought it was just like multiple endings over and over.
Yeah. And that was where I was like, you need some breaks in here to have some like some more story and to let us take a breath and stuff. And again, maybe that's an anime thing where anime, you know, fans are like, no, I won't. If it's an 80-minute movie, I want 65 minutes of fights. And if that's the case, cool. But to me, it just got kind of exhausting where I was like, wow, we're just right into another one, aren't we? And when it is that way, and I love action and fights as much as the next guy, I do think you just start to space out at a certain point.
Well, a lot of the times with the anime stuff, I mean, these things are about 20 something minutes. And so they do a lot of fighting in it. And, you know, it's not every type of anime, but that's mainly for the TV shows and the movies. It feels more spread out, but it's just what they wanted to do. They wanted to get a lot of these action scenes in, which you'll see that in live action movies where they do too many of those too.
Yeah.
So but they just want to showcase the powers of each of Catwoman, Batwoman, and stuff like that, and it's an interesting way to do it. Obviously, this is your venue, so you might as well, have fun with it, I guess.
Yeah.
So I appreciate the effort put in to maximize the entertainment value, because everyone knows, because I talk about it all the time, how much I appreciate entertainment value. But at some point, I do feel like it becomes overkill, and I really think it got there a little too quickly in this film for me.
Yep.
Yeah, and I will say, like, I was a casual Dragon Ball Z fan back in the day, not so much anymore. But I remember that, like, watching a 30-minute episode, and the whole thing is one fight. The whole episode is literally just a fight. And I was like, so again, maybe that's just the nature of it.
I never watched that show. I have a good friend of mine that watched that show pretty religiously, and I felt like for a month straight, this guy would tell me, yeah, Goku's getting ready to fight Frieza. He's training up. He's getting ready for it. I'm like, really? This is still going on? They haven't fought yet? What? So, yeah. That probably wouldn't have been for me either.
Yeah, with Dragon Ball Z, I mean, you could condense their entire season into literally, I think they have like 80 episodes. You could condense that into probably 20, 30-minute episodes and you're fine. But they just extend everything out so much, because just like with this, to where you think, okay, this could be the end. Oh, there's a power up. Oh, there's a power up. Oh, there's a power up. So it's not really the same thing here, but I mean, they just, again, like you said, they just one on top of the other, just kept going and going and going. And I didn't know when it ended. I'm like, I thought there's going to be more, to be honest with you. But
yeah, so that, is certainly a point I will concede, and that is where it sort of overstayed its welcome as far as I was concerned. But we haven't really talked about the animation too much, other than it's anime inspired. You said that some of the computer generated pieces didn't work as much for you, but overall, I thought the animation was really good in this. Like, I thought it looked expensive. It looked really smooth. It was really impressive, especially in a lot of those fights. Even though they were too long, the animation in them was beautiful. So I give a lot of credit to just how it was animated. So in general, like, yes, it's anime style, but just I can appreciate good animation when I see it. And I thought that this one overall looked great.
I will agree with that, because Batman Ninja being a reference point here, I thought there were parts of that movie that were, for me, and I don't mean to offend people that are into the style, I thought parts of that movie were ugly.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, aesthetically speaking, and I get what Justin's saying about not really liking the mix of the 3D and CG animation thrown in there. I get that. I can appreciate that. But nothing in this movie ever detracted for me in that aspect. I don't think I can recall anything in this movie that I just felt was ugly or just not fitting with what they were going for. So I'll agree. I don't think it was a bad looking movie.
Yeah. No, agreed. And again, like, they obviously have the big anime eyes and everything, so it's certainly the style, but I didn't feel it was so stylized where, again, non-anime fans would check out. Like with Batman Ninja. Remember there was this a moment where they were like, they just cut to another scene and the whole animation style changed for no reason?
Yeah, it turned into like a watercolor thing.
Yeah.
Was that when Joker and Harley forgot that lost their memory?
Yeah.
That was actually my favorite that was my favorite animation of that whole movie.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, again, what you guys are talking about makes sense. But yeah, when they do switch stuff up sometimes, and it just gets weird. But
yeah, but I thought everyone looked great. I thought Catwoman looked great. I thought Batwoman looked great. Yeah, I thought everyone looked really good. And again, I thought they were animated very well too. And I did appreciate that they bring in Barbara Minerva. And so for that big final battle, they let her go full cheetah. And she goes like monster cheetah, which I really like too. Like, I love the idea of
tall.
What's that?
Like 8 feet tall.
Yeah. Like, I love the idea of like treating her like a werewolf or a were cheetah, as opposed to her, just being the cheetah or wearing a costume. I think that was really cool. And the transformation sequence is very werewolf. And I liked that too.
Looked painful.
Yeah. That looked painful.
Quick shout out to, I believe, Kelly Hu is who voiced Cheshire, and I've loved her since X2, so I want to make sure we acknowledge her real fast.
For sure, for sure. And then, I mean, Tobias Whale, I mean, I mentioned it briefly at the beginning, but yeah, I forgot Tobias Whale is essentially Cheetah's right hand in this, and even he gets in on the action towards the end, so...
And I really like Tobias Whale as a character. And, again, the choice of Keith David for that, I felt was as close to perfect as you could have gotten.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
He's got a great voice. He really does. You can put him in almost anything, and he sounds fantastic.
If you've never seen the Spawn animated series that ran on HBO years ago, and last time I checked, that was still on HBO Max, but who knows if that won't change later this afternoon. He was fantastic in the lead part in that Spawn series.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he was Goliath in Gargoyles.
I love Gargoyles.
Gargoyles was great. And there's another Greg Weisman show. Before he did Young Justice, he did Gargoyles.
And so did that thing constant praise, and I've never seen a single episode.
Oh, it's amazing. And Jonathan Frakes was in Gargoyles. Oh my God, it's all coming together. I didn't realize this was a mini Gargoyles reunion until I just said it out loud. Yeah, Jonathan Frakes was the villain in Gargoyles, and he was great.
The billionaire who bought the castle, put it above the clouds.
Yeah, it's on Disney Plus, Jamie. So if you're looking for something like with your morning coffee, Gargoyles is pretty awesome. What's that?
That was the reason I got Disney Plus.
Hell yeah.
I don't feel like I've ever heard anyone say a bad word about that show. So someday I really should come back around to it.
I mean, you like Young Justice, Greg Weisman.
Indeed.
So, oh, real quick, it's a small thing, but I still thought it was cool. I loved that also in that opening sequence, which is extended, but
yeah,
I love that Catwoman drives the purple convertible. Yeah, it's like it's such a Catwoman car. It's a version of what the Happy Meal toy was for Batman Returns, which I liked. So I appreciated, like, not only was it like, it was very much a modern Catwoman, Batwoman, Cheetah, etc. It was a very modern version of all these characters, but I appreciated the nods to the past, and I think that that's great. Again, like the costume, the car, things like that was really cool.
Another one of my chief gripes, and I'll just say it now to get it out of the way, is I understand the preferences that certain characters have, but I felt like the whole bathtub seduction scene between Catwoman and Batwoman was really... I feel like that was a disservice to Batwoman as a character, that she was so weak in that moment that she was just going to bow to her desires versus do what...
I thought you'd have more will than that.
I don't have any issue with the lesbian, bisexual, none of that stuff bothers me. I just feel like Batwoman is a stronger character than letting Catwoman just overcome her that easily. I that didn't sit well with me.
I completely agree, actually. Like, Catwoman is canonically bisexual. Batwoman we know is gay, and that's fine, and that's cool. And I liked how they nodded that during the party where Catwoman was flirting with the men and the women. I thought it was fun. But you're right, like Catwoman essentially trying to seduce Batwoman to get her way, that's fine, because Catwoman would do that. But the fact that it seemed to work, it did bug me that like Batwoman was like, seemed like she was willing to go along with it. And I was like, no, come on. Like, you're smarter than this. You know what she's up to. So I'm with you on this.
And then her mask comes off and you see the blushing of the face. You see her face slowly turn red and pink and stuff. And it's like,
I just feel like there was a better way that could have been handled. But
yeah, I agree.
Is what it is.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And then, like, towards the end, I mentioned it earlier, just sort of vaguely, but I also appreciated, well, the opening credits I thought were really great. I am a sucker for a stylized credit sequence. And I thought this one was really cool. It was that same jazzy music, but it was a very, stylish animation. And it really showed Catwoman not only being a thief, but also fighting for the freedom of other women, which I thought was awesome. And there are nods to it throughout the film, especially when she calls Holly. But then at the end to find out that she was really playing this whole thing because she needed to take down Minerva, because Minerva was doing this trafficking of women.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a really nice extra touch and kind of a mini twist at the end that I was like, great. Like, I like that Catwoman. Yes, of course she was after the sparklies because she's Catwoman, but there was also this ulterior motive of trying to stop this trafficking ring. And she was using Batwoman and the agents. I keep saying the agents because I can't remember what organization they were with. Was it Interpol? Was it the FBI?
I thought it was Interpol.
Yeah, whatever it was. To using them to bring down Leviathan because of this trafficking. And if she walks out with some sparklies in the meantime, great. But I just thought that was a really nice touch for the character of Catwoman. So as far as being a Catwoman movie, I feel like it checks all the boxes. Is she's still only on her own side, but she's still helping these women in need. She's manipulating those who she needs to get what she wants. She's playing all sides. Like, all of those are such a big part of the character. And I think that this movie manages to make all that work.
And for all the strange and unusual and bold choices I feel like the movie made, I feel like the actual characterization of Catwoman was very well done because everyone knows, I've said it many times before, I'll say it probably many times again in the future, I'm not the biggest fan of Catwoman, but one thing I can appreciate is that Catwoman, even though she does seem like borderline villain, sometimes anti-hero, whatever, her heart and nobility are always seeming to be in the right place in the best stories about her. And I felt like they did a very nice job of portraying that in this. So along the lines of what you're saying, I thought that was well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. She stole that gem basically to fund freedom for a lot of those girls. So it does, as an outside, I've never really read a bunch of Catwoman books and stuff, but it adds depth to her character instead of just wanting to steal stuff to get money and whatnot. So when you see that, it actually adds more to her as a character itself. So
sure,
that was good.
And even the bit where Batwoman calls her Cat, and Catwoman takes like a huge offensive issue to it because she says, only he calls me Cat. And even though I don't like the whole Bat-Cat dynamic, I like that little call out that she's got that place in her heart for Batman that she would only allow him to call her by that particular name. I thought that was a decent touch.
Yeah, I like that too. I liked the nods and the subtle mentions of Batman, especially that relationship is always there. And even at the end when she's having that final conversation about going back to Gotham, I like that Batman is present just in her thoughts throughout the film.
Sure.
So yeah, I think that was really cool.
And this is very much a girl power centric movie, which I am absolutely all for. But the fact that they don't forget about important characters in these people's lives in that process, I think was pretty well done too.
I agree. And I think that goes back to, again, the selection of characters they choose is, as a Catwoman movie, it is a very female character heavy movie. And I love that about it. I love that it's Catwoman and Batwoman and Julia Pennyworth and Talia al Ghul and Barbara Minerva and Cheshire and Nosferatu. Like, most of the characters in this are female. There are certainly plenty of male ones as well, but for a Catwoman movie, it feels right. And I liked, again, the creativity of bringing in characters that are unexpected, but still make sense.
And you mentioned before the guy that does like the mech thing and that big battle between the bosses, if you will, at the end. The guy that turns into the mech, I don't know if it's ever mentioned by name, but I'm pretty sure he's the leader of Intergang. Am I getting that right?
I thought they said Intergang.
Yeah, I think they did too.
Okay. Yeah, I probably missed that because
like he and Black Mask have a history where they hate each other, and so it's mentioned in that scene.
So I recognize the name Mannheim, and I'm pretty sure that was the leader, but I didn't catch that because honestly, at some point I kind of started checking my phone in this movie.
Real quick, I also wanted to mention when Batwoman shows up, it's during that big chase sequence and she's riding her bat bike, and the bat bike looks very similar to what we have seen in set photos for Ben Affleck's Batman in The Flash. It looks like the Ben Affleck bat bike. I don't know if you noticed that. Mm-mm. And maybe that's just coincidence. It very well might be, because I also feel like there is a comic version that's very similar to that. I want to say it was White Knight, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, it's like that style of bat bike we've seen in multiple iterations. And I thought that was a cool touch as well. I don't know if, again, it's coincidence or if they pulled it from the comics, or who knows where it originated, who did the first one, but I still thought it was cool. All right. I also love this real quick is when Catwoman lands on her feet and she's about to say that, and Batwoman's like, she goes, "Cats always." She's like, "Yeah, I know, lands on her feet. I know." And she goes, "Don't you ever get tired of the cat shtick?" And she goes, "Listen, do you want to talk about shtick, Batwoman?" And I thought that was funny too.
They have some banter moments that are pretty decent between the two, because you have to imagine that their relationship would be somewhat contentious anytime the two of them would be in the room together, because kind of opposite sides of the law, if you will, something along those lines. And especially they went out of their way to say here that Batwoman's basically keeping the eye on her, if you will. So
For sure. And that's why I think it goes back to like throughout the movie, and I actually really liked the dynamic between Batwoman and Catwoman, because I don't remember, and doesn't mean it hasn't happened, but I don't remember seeing them paired up much in the comics. So this was sort of fun to throw them together and see how that works. But throughout, Batwoman is not buying what Catwoman is selling. Like from the moment she shows up and Catwoman's figuring out that she was the one who foiled the robbery, and she's like, "Come on, you'll get there. You'll get there." Like she's giving Catwoman a hard time throughout. She won't let her say her little cat thing without giving her crap about it. Like, so that's what makes the seduction scene a little more annoying, is like, no, like Batwoman's smarter than this. She knows what Catwoman's up to.
they kind of almost play the 48 hours dynamic between the two of them. They have to kind of work together, but they really don't want to be in the same room with each other, sort of thing. So there's a lot of back and forth in the dialogue. And even though these two would just love to kick the crap out of each other, they can't because of the circumstances they're in. So they're taking it out on one another in the only way that they can in that time. But again, I think that does make the seduction sequence that much worse.
Yeah. All right. Anything else in the movie we failed to mention? Speak now.
I got it playing in the background here. I'm just trying to see here.
There's always something. It's just the nature of these things. But let's give some closing thoughts and some letter grades. Jamie, why don't you go ahead?
So again, for anybody that's into this style or into this movie, I don't mean to offend. I'm not going to say in any way that I'm objectively demeaning this film, but as far as me and my personal taste, it's just not for me. It just didn't work for me. It wasn't without its high points. For me, it certainly had a lot of low points too. I think for the most part, what they were going for was well done enough. It just the presentation and overall for me just was not my thing. So for me, and again, this is strictly my sole opinion-based, taste-based grading. I have to land this one at a D.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't imagine I'm ever going to have a cause to revisit this.
What's funny is, I mean, I certainly expected you to be way harsher, but you've been very nice in the conversation. So
I'm trying to be more positive, even in my negative.
Okay, that's fair. All right, Justin, what about you?
I think overall it was okay. Again, for me personally, just some of the graphics and stuff kind of always throw me out watching something. But the story itself I liked a little bit. I liked all the characters. That you had a whole bunch of characters, which is nice. Because you have the animated movie. Why not just throw a whole bunch in there? You have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
But it's something I try and make it a point to watch all these animated movies, and obviously some are better than the others. This one, I saw it. I'm probably never going to watch it again. But I'll be a little bit more generous. I'll say it's a D plus.
Wow.
Just it's good, some good parts, but overall, it's just not something that I think is worth consistently rehashing. So
okay. Huh. I feel like we haven't had this big of a divide in a long time, because I liked it. I did. Obviously I have things that I thought were a bit much, but in general, I thought it was a nice surprise, and I had a good time with it. I liked the animation. I really liked the character of Catwoman. I thought they did a great job with her. I loved how many other characters they brought into it. So yeah, I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm giving it a B.
I fully expected you to drop a B plus on this.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? I think the first time I saw it, it probably would have been a B plus, if I'm being honest. But rewatching it, some of those cracks began to show a little more, especially just in just, I was like, oh, okay, like we've been fighting for 40 minutes. Like, it was more that where I was like, okay, like that bothered me less the first time and more the second time. So that's where it got knocked down to a B, but still a B. I thought it was above average. It was much better than I expected, and I liked it more than I thought. So I enjoyed it. Catwoman Hunted, a B, a D plus, and a D. So your mileage totally will vary. And that's okay. That's fine. But there you have it. It's done. But we're not done spending time with Catwoman. And this time with Batman. Because we are going to review the next episode of The Batman.
Are we sure this was Catwoman in this episode?
Oh, we're pretty sure. Yeah.
It kind of looks like Mouse Woman to me.
Okay.
The ears throw me off.
Well, I feel like we couldn't have planned it better to have Catwoman Hunted and then have the introduction of Catwoman in The Batman. So we are doing season 1, episode 4 of The Batman, The Cat and the Bat. This one was directed by Sam Liu, written by Adam Beechin, and it aired on October 2nd of 2004. And this is the introduction of this version of Catwoman. She's out there, surprise, surprise, stealing something from a gangster. Stealing a jade lion type thing? Yeah. All right, great. So she is out there stealing, and then we find out, the press gets word that there is a Catwoman out here, and they start linking her with Batman. It's like, oh, is this anything like Batman who's out there? Could they be working together? There are similarities. We don't know. And Batman's like, oh, no, this is not going to help my relationship with the police. And so he goes out to find Catwoman. Catwoman actually lures him out. She's like, oh, he seems fun. I'm going to lure him out. And they meet. And they have a little chase, a little tete-a-tete, very Batman Catwoman. And through it, eventually Catwoman manages to grab his utility belt. And so she starts messing with the utility belt, which ends up messing with a bunch of his equipment back in the Batcave, including the Batmobile. She manages to get into the remote for the Batmobile, and he ends up having to chase it throughout Gotham. But what she was really interested in was the drone Batarang. And so she thought there were tools in the utility belt she could use for her thievery, for things that she wanted to take. And she's trying to steal from Hideto Katsu, who is the owner of this Jade Dragon. And now that she has this equipment, she goes back to take it again because she failed the first time. Batman follows, and then the two of them end up having to team up to fight off Katsu's minions. And she gives him the belt back, and they manage to have like the standard Catwoman Batman allyship, but still contentious. But she escapes, and they're going to face each other another day. So, the Bat and the Cat. Jamie, what'd you think?
So my favorite thing about this episode also makes me very, very sad.
Oh, geez.
Because I thought, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, because I don't think I've ever heard it said out loud. Is it Gina Gershon or Gershon? Or
Gershon is, yeah.
Gershon. I thought she did a nice job as Catwoman. But then once I realized it was her doing the voice, my head immediately went to, my God, how great would she have been as a live action Catwoman?
No, agreed.
I'm never going to get it. But I mean, especially like the late 90s, early 2000s, she would have been perfect for it. But like now, if you would have wanted to do more of the, I'm trying to think of the tactful way to say it, the mature Catwoman story, if you will, I'd still like to see it happen because I really like her. But yeah, I mean, I thought this was a pretty decent episode. I mean, anytime I really like Japanese culture. Like I'm not like so deep into it that I speak the language or anything like that. Obviously, you know how I feel about anime, but I appreciate it, and I always seem to like it when it shows up. Think back to the Ninja episodes of Batman the Animated Series, and
Love those.
how fond I was of that. This is kind of along those same lines for me. Not everything about the episode works for me. Catwoman stealing the utility belt is an interesting concept, and her toying around with the security features, which I love how Batman has the security features on the belt. I think that's a nice touch versus just having a belt somebody could swipe and just start using all of this stuff. And her toying around with it and trying to figure things out. I think there's some fun to be had there, but I think it got to be overkill in that she's hitting just the right buttons to make the mech Batman attack them and take off with the Batmobile. I mean, again, it's fun and I know what they're trying to do with it, but at some point I'm just like, come on, man, that's a bit much. But I also really liked as we got to the end of the episode and them sort of teaming up to get out of the situation they're in with the Yakuza boss and the ninja. I thought that was very well done. Good action in this episode. I thought it was very well animated with the action here.
Yeah.
So, overall, I thought it was a decent episode. I don't think it's anything that I'm going to be talking about for years to come, but I enjoyed it.
All right. Nice. Justin, what about you?
As an episode itself, I really liked it. I thought they did a great job with from start to finish. Nothing was overbearing. They did. I never really got into this animation for the Batman here. I hate their new stylized versions of a lot of the characters. Sometimes Batman works for me in it, but sometimes he doesn't. But overall, I personally, I did like the episode and their dynamic with each other, her stealing the belt. And the fighting sequences I thought were really cool, especially when they worked together and they were fighting together in the warehouse was really cool. So I personally really liked the episode.
Yeah, I'm with both of you. I think it's a really good episode. I think that this is a really good version of Catwoman. As you said, Jamie, Gina Gershon is awesome as the voice. You both mentioned her design, and we can't do any of these episodes without mentioning the design. But overall, I think her design is good. I do agree that the ears are strangely large. It's funny you mentioned a mouse. I just thought they looked like bat ears, really, like big bat ears. Maybe that's on purpose. Maybe that was done being like, see, they're kind of the same. And so the cat ears look more like bat ears, but they're a bit large. But aside from that, I like her look a lot. It's a little more traditional than what you've come to expect from the series. I like the little splashes of red on her gloves and on her boots. I think that's just a nice touch to make it pop. And then when she gets the utility belt and even wears it, it looks almost like Julie Newmar, which I thought was cool too. So I like her design, even with the big ears, because aside from that, it's a pretty traditional Catwoman, and their dynamic is very, I think, accurate to what it should be, of them being at odds, but not always, and her being fascinated by him and thinking that he's fun, but him trying to deny it because he's like, no, we're not the same. You're stealing. I'm trying to stop this. And so the playing between the two of them, I think, is done really well. And like you guys said, the animation on the fights is really well done. And to me, I feel like now that it's only 4 episodes in, things can change, but at least for this beginning, I am seeing just a pattern as far as how these episodes are. Is like the pluses always tend to be the animation itself, I think, is really well done, and the characterizations are good, and then the designs are hit and miss, but I feel like the stories are always pretty basic, at least for now. It seems more interested in the action and the visuals than it is in the stories, and I do think that eventually gets better, but right now I think the stories just have stayed they're fine, but they're nothing special. They don't go in too deep because they want to focus more on the eye candy.
Well, I noticed, and I don't know why it never popped to me before, and I've never paid attention to what the other ones like Batman the Animated Series say, but when they pop the little rating up in the corner when you're watching on HBO Max, I noticed that it was a TV Y7. So I think they know who their audience is that they're making this for, and I don't think they want to make it overly complex. I think they're probably purposely trying to keep it in that simple realm. And that's not to say that they're trying to talk down to the audience or anything, but I think they're making exactly what they're setting out to make. And to an extent, I think I can appreciate that.
Yeah. I will say, I think that it's a really fun idea for Catwoman to go, oh, Batman's got fun toys. I bet I could use those for what I need them for. I think that's a great idea for a Catwoman story of being like, I'm not out to stop him. I don't even need him, but I need his tools. And I think that's really cool. And I think then what it leads to is really fun too, of her trying to figure them out and it causing some havoc. You're right, it's a bit much, but I went with it because it's a Saturday morning cartoon. And in the last episode, which was the Bane episode, that introduced the mech suit. And for Batman, I'm not a big fan of a mech suit. I like Batman as Batman. I don't need him to be a giant robot. But
Oh, come on, you're the world's biggest fan of Heavy.
Heavy.
Isn't that the one where
Super Heavy?
Super
Heavy? Yeah. Right. I forgot about that. And so even though I'm not super hot on the mech suit, I appreciated the continuity of they introduced it in the last episode, and then this episode is just sort of hanging out in the corner, and then it comes to life because of Catwoman messing with his stuff. I thought that was a nice touch of a nice callback to what we just saw. And then,
obviously we don't know how much time lapsed between the Bane episode and this episode in real time, if you will, but boy, he seemed to fix that thing in a big hurry, didn't he?
Yeah,
Or maybe there was just more than one. That's also a possibility.
That's old episodic TV. When the episode ends, everything's exactly as it started.
The reset button.
Exactly. And then, the chase with the Batmobile I thought was really fun too. I mean, again, I get your point, but I went with it and I thought it was a fun idea. And then Alfred feverishly back in the Batcave, ripping all of the remotes out of every piece of equipment. I thought it was a fun idea.
And there were two things with Catwoman in this where she uses kind of misdirection, and it's really simple, but I appreciated it. And that's when he had the remote control Batarang on one side of her and him on the other, so he kind of has her, surrounded, if you will. And she's, eyeballing the remote on his belt for it, and she's like getting ready to hit him with the whip, but in actuality, her backstroke with the whip takes down the Batarang. I thought that was pretty slick. And then at the end, where he wants is it the remote that she has that she tosses back to him, and she just kind of throws it over his head, so he has to look away to catch it over his shoulder and looks back and she's gone. Those two things of misdirection, I don't know why, it put a smile on my face. I thought that was well done. It's very simple, but it took some thought to put into that, and I liked it.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that when she gave him back his belt, she tried to keep one piece of it. Like, that's great. That's very her. And then Batman's like, I need all of it. And then she's like, fine. like that's very good Batman Catwoman stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Alfred
says something at the end of the episode, and I liked it, and I wanted to point it out, and it's been a minute, so I can't remember what it was he said that I was going to bring up. Anybody remember kind of how Alfred closes out?
Something along I always wanted you to find another girl, but
similar interests, I think is find a woman with similar interests, but this isn't quite what I had in mind.
Yeah.
Again, nothing earth shattering, but I thought that was a pretty good moment.
It's fun. Yeah. Well, the same thing as when Catwoman says, I think we've got a lot in common, or something like, or we're more alike than you think, and Batman's like, no, we're not. Like, don't count on it. That was fun too.
And their initial meeting, I don't know why, maybe it's just because that's where my brain wanted to go, felt very similar to the first meeting between Batman and Catwoman in Returns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'll also say what's interesting about this version of Catwoman is we don't really know who Selina Kyle is. Like, we do see her at her apartment, and she's frustrated and she's going to go out again, but we don't know like which version of Selina Kyle this is. Is she only a thief? Is she the socialite like Batman the Animated Series? Like, who is she? And they don't really know, and maybe they just are like, we'll figure it out later. But
it looks like she might be a socialite.
Yeah, based on where she lives, that's kind of what it felt like. But they don't.
In the high rent district there.
Yeah, they don't give us any info on that, because I always think it's so interesting that as far as Catwoman goes, her origins or who Selina Kyle is has the most
fluidity.
Yeah, most fluidity. That's a good way of putting it. Is it's not consistent at all. It changes version to version, and because it's not consistent, we don't really nobody gets too up in arms about it because it can be anything you want, really, because it constantly changes. So I was curious when they showed her in the apartment of like, oh, which version of Selena Kyle it is, and then we don't really find out. But you're right, using context clues, it seems like maybe she's a little more of the socialite.
Yeah.
And in this version, the Gotham suburbs, man, they seem to be a little buck wild. This cat's got several acres that he made an entire Japanese style compound on, and it's just like on the other side of the river from the downtown Gotham. That's pretty crazy.
I know. All right. Well, The Cat and the Bat, episode 4. Look at us moving right along. Closing thoughts, letter grades, Jamie.
Pretty fun episode. Decent dynamic between Batman and Catwoman, I think, is just about where it needs to be as far as what we know of it over the years. I think there's way more to like in this episode than there's not. I got a few problems and critiques here and there, but overall, I thought it was a pretty solid episode. I'm going to give this one a B.
All right, great. Justin.
Yeah, I think I always have to put my mind in what they're making this for. I mean, the storyline is smooth. Everything goes where it's supposed to be. They start from one and finish, and the dynamics between all the characters work out really good. Fight scenes are good. My only issue, again, is the animations, like the actual stylized visuals of these characters just kind of throws me off a bit. So, I mean, I'm going to give it a B, mainly because the story, it's good, and all the other stuff is fine. It's just the animation, character stylized, just doesn't work for me.
All right, great. I mean, I think that we all saw the same episode. We're all on the same page here, as opposed to Catwoman Hunted. Yeah, it's a really good episode. I think it's a great introduction for this version of Catwoman, and it's, unlike some of the others, it's a version of Catwoman that, to me, still feels pretty faithful to what you would expect from Catwoman. Size of ears notwithstanding, she's Catwoman. She does what you expect. The dynamic is there. The personality is there. And I think that it's a really fun episode. I think there's a good idea there of her stealing from Batman, not wanting to defeat him, but just steal from him is really fun. And the fact that they then become unlikely allies, it feels appropriate. So I really enjoyed it. But as Jamie says, I always have to one up you just a tiny bit. So it's a B+.
I friggin' knew it.
Yeah, it's a B+. Sorry about that. There you go. Now we got Catwoman as part of the Batman, the animated series. Next one up is called The Man Who Would Be Bat. So that'll be homework for next time. And that is the introduction of Man-Bat. Something to look forward to. So there you go. Thanks for following along with us as we rewatch The Batman. But now we're going to check in with you, fine feathered finks, and crack open the Wayne Manor mailbox. It's time again for the Wayne Manor mailbox.
You've got mail.
Derek, what is a letter for me?
Maybe temporary.
She wrote a letter.
You're one hell of a messenger. Sizzle, Master Wayne.
All right. Only got a couple emails here. Not too much. Not too bad. First one here is from Bat Sam from Boston. It says, hey guys, question 1. Would you agree that the Joker and the Penguin are the two most popular Batman villains? I just found out that the Joker appeared in 22 of 120 Batman 66 episodes, and Penguin appeared in 19. Far more than any other villain. Question 2. Were these fan favorite villains from the comics of that era, or were Cesar Romero and Burgess Meredith just so good that their characters rose to the top? Thanks, Bat Sam from Boston. Thanks, Bat Sam, and cool, Batman 66 questions. That's fun. All right, so question 1. Would you agree that Joker and Penguin are the most popular? And do you think that it's more about the characters or about the actors of Cesar Romero and Burgess Meredith? Jamie, what do you think?
As far as the second one, I feel like it's a solid combination of both, because both were so good in those roles, but those two were obviously the cream of the crop for the Bat villains, especially for that era. So I would definitely have to say the two go hand in hand there. And obviously the willingness of people to return to a role and play the part probably significantly helps in that much too. So those two obviously enjoyed what they did there, or were extremely well paid and decided the paycheck was worth doing it, one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
What was the first question again? I'm sorry.
Do you think that the Joker and Penguin are Batman's two most popular villains?
Joker, definitely. Penguin certainly has to be in the conversation, I believe. I think if you say, the big four, you'd always have to say, Joker, Penguin, maybe Catwoman, although she's much more evolved from the villain status from those days, and Riddler. So, yeah, I think they're definitely Joker's number one. Penguin's certainly got to be in the conversation as number two, I think.
All right, cool. Justin, what do you think?
Obviously Joker. He's the most famous, probably the most famous villain in all of comics. I mean, you can argue against it, but he might be. Penguin, that's a tough one because majority of people remember him either from 66 or they remember him from Batman Returns. It's just, I guess he might be, but I would think Catwoman would be probably rated higher as a villain, even though you're right, she's good and bad at the same time. But I guess you could argue that Penguin was up there.
Mm-hmm.
But in regards to Romero and Burgess, I think back then it was just they got these two actors. We're just going to keep these guys going as much as we can instead of having a crap ton of actors and characters installed in the show. I mean, I know they do a lot of offshoots, but it's just easier if you can get, at the time, you get these certain actors for this amount of time. It makes it easier for them. I think that's why that they were the main ones there, to be honest.
I am sorry. I'm trying to check Sam's numbers here because they do not jive with what I know. So I guess to answer the questions, the Joker, easily number one, Batman's most popular villain, easily. The Penguin, I think he is vying for number two with Catwoman, arguably with the Riddler or Two-Face, but I do think that the big four have been the big four since the 60s show, and a lot of it is because of the 60s shows, and that is Joker, Penguin, Riddler, Catwoman. I feel like those are always sort of the big four, and I think you can throw Two-Face in there to make it the big five. So you can certainly make the case that the Penguin would be number two. And I mean, that's the reason that the Penguin starred in Batman Returns, is because WB said the Penguin was number two. And so Tim Burton's like, okay, I guess I'm doing the Penguin. As for were they fan favorites because of the actors or the characters, I think with the Joker, it was both. I think the Joker was iconic then, he's iconic now. And the fact that Cesar Romero was so good, I think it's both of those things. But I would argue that for the Penguin, it was about Burgess Meredith because yes, the Penguin was a recognizable villain from Batman's Rogues Gallery, but I don't think he became one of the biggies until Burgess Meredith played him in the show. And I think that's what really pushed the popularity of the Penguin as high as it is. But I can't find the numbers, but you're claiming that the Joker appeared in 22 episodes and the Penguin in 19. I have always understood that the Penguin is the villain who has appeared the most in Batman. And so I don't know where you got these numbers, and I don't have time as we're talking to go check them. But even in the Batman 66 Blu-ray box set, it literally says the Penguin was the villain who appeared in the most episodes. So I'm challenging the Joker number, but the Penguin number could be correct.
Maybe he has them flipped.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I don't know. I would have to look it up, and I probably will later because I am curious now. But they said that literally Burgess Meredith loved doing it so much that they always had scripts on hand for him anytime he wanted to come back and do Penguin. So that's why he has been the one. He was the one who appeared in the show the most, according to my knowledge. So, but there you go. Thanks, Bat Sam. Next question is from Robert Reinecke. It says, hey, Holy BatCast. I enjoyed listening to your look back at 2022, which brought my mind to looking ahead to 2023 and beyond. This may need some thinking and perhaps revisiting another day, but let's say that hypothetically, WB went outside the box and hired Andy, Jamie, and Brendan to run DC going forward. What direction would have you gone in? What direction would you have gone in? And what would have been your slate? Best to all of you in 2023, Robert. Thanks, Robert. I mean, yeah, like to get a true slate, I would have to do some homework.
That's an episode for you guys
That
to do.
it could be a whole episode.
I feel like this is the second time we've gotten a question like this with that. And again, yeah, it takes a lot of, that's way more than I can do off the cuff in any kind of effective measure.
Yeah. What, I mean, I'll give you like my initial thoughts is I would have kept Henry Cavill and immediately made another solo Superman movie. That would be like top priority because I felt like that was way overdue. So that would have been one of the first things I did. I would not have gone back on that. As for the slate, oh man, I don't know. I got to think about it. Jamie, any thoughts that spring to mind?
I would have prioritized Green Lantern getting back on a big screen.
Yeah, that's good. Justin, what about you? What would you have liked if what would you have requested of us if we were put in charge?
I mean, are we talking just 2023?
No, I don't know. It's just what would have been your slate.
See, that's the hard
It could
part.
be
I mean,
anything, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's just the way I looked at it is you spend all this money on stuff and then it's not working, and so you keep trying to change it. Just this is what gets me away from wanting a shared universe, because if one thing screws up, then that messes up the entire slate itself. So I probably would have said, screw it. Individual movies, nothing connected. That way you're not obliged to keep certain characters forever. You have no option because it's just like Marvel's way too expansive. There's so much stuff going on that people don't even know about. And with DC, it's like, again, when BVS bombed, well, it didn't bomb, but it wasn't as popular as it should have been. That ruined everything. So the shared universe stuff really, I kind of got burnt out on, even though my favorite trilogy of all time now is Man of Steel, BVS, and Zack Snyder's Justice League. But it's just, I don't know. I want a Superman. I'd want a Batman. I'd want a Green Lantern. I'd want a Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Flash, all in the same year. Personally, that's what I would want.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff's not feasible anymore, and one thing goes wrong and it screws up the whole cart.
Yeah. Here's, as we're talking about it, here's what I think. Again, off the top of my head, here's what I think I would do. And especially knowing that, we know what direction James Gunn and Peter Safran are probably going in. We can hear any day now what their plans are. Here's what I think I would do. I would, yes, get that Superman solo film sequel in development and production immediately. Yep. I would allow Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot to finish the Wonder Woman trilogy, do Wonder Woman 3. Correct. I would talk to James Wan about doing an Aquaman 3. And then I would talk to Zack Snyder about doing a Justice League final film to end the universe.
Yeah.
And I don't mean end the universe as in kill them all, but to give an ending to the shared universe. And that way, when we're done, we have 2 Superman solo films as well as him in some shared films. We have a Wonder Woman trilogy. We have an Aquaman trilogy. We have a Flash movie with whatever that's going to be. And then we have a finale.
Yeah.
And then we do a hard reboot.
That's realistically, that's the best. That's why I was like, you guys you do Justice League and Justice League 2 and then end it from there. But then they screwed that. But I mean, if you get a finale film, that's it. That's our story. And now we're starting fresh.
Yeah.
It just makes things so much easier. So now Gunn's got to figure out which part he's going to keep here. And it adds a lot of garbage to the overall story that you want to try and tell, that it's just very frustrating.
Yeah. And that's just it, is like, and like we've discussed, I get wanting a fresh start. I get it. I don't even argue against it, but I think that giving a proper wrap up to the past 10 years would be a priority before that fresh start. And I think there was a way to have both, but my hunch is that the powers that be didn't want to wait another couple years for the fresh start. And so it's like,
yeah,
that's just what,
or invest the money it was going to take to make all those movies you just rattled off.
I mean, that's true too, but it's like, but you can absolutely make a business case for Aquaman 3 and Wonder Woman 3 and Superman. You can make a business case for all those things. I think Justice League would be the toughest sell, which is crazy to say out loud, but just based on what Zack might want to do with that film and the baggage of the Justice League movie that came prior, like that's, I think, the trickiest thing because of how expensive it would be. But that's when you have those conversations about like, this is a finale. Let's talk about what that story looks like and go from there. But
well, then he just couldn't wait for the all the critics who couldn't wait to bash it, each and every one of those, saying we could have a whole new universe, but we're still stuck with this. And it's like, oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that's kind of the bottom line, and is why I'm a little more sympathetic and understanding of as to what Gunn and Safran are doing is in a lot of ways, it's a no-win scenario.
Nope.
And so, and that's the tricky part of it. All right. Well, again, it's a tricky scenario, which is why I do understand all sides of it. And, but they didn't call us about what we should do. I wish they had, but I mean, yeah, I don't know if we want to expand on it and make it its own episode. We could do that too.
If they want to make me king of DC, y'all would have already had a Legion of Doom movie. I'm just saying.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, next episode's from Todd Johnson. It says, "Hey guys, I love the show. I just got done listening to your end of year episode, and it was great as usual. It got me thinking. If you'd have asked me before listening to the episode about my high point of 2022, I definitely would have said The Batman. Then Brendan said something that made me think. I have not watched the movie since it dropped on HBO Max. So now I'm asking myself, how much did I really enjoy it? I would have put it in my top 3 Batman movies if you had asked me last summer, but did I really enjoy it as much as I thought? Are there any Batman movies that you really love, but for some reason have fallen down on your rewatchable list? Thanks for reading my email. Keep doing what you do, Todd." Thanks, Todd. Oh man. I mean, I understand the question. So, the question, Batman movies that you really love, but have fallen down on your watchable list. Jamie?
I've said it before, and I can freely admit it out loud. There was a point when I was about 20 years old where I thought Batman Forever was the definitive Batman movie that I'd seen in my entire life. So clearly we can see I have shifted positions on that over the last 27, 28 years. So
thank God.
Yeah.
the naivete of youth.
I can still watch it and I can still enjoy aspects of it, but I certainly see the cracks much more now that I'm in my late 40s than when I was 20 years old. So I would say that would be my answer for that one.
Holy Rusted Metal, Batman.
Yep.
You wouldn't believe how hard I laughed at that in the theater.
So did I.
I did the first time too. Justin, what about you? Any Batman movies that you used to love, but maybe you're like, I don't go back to it as much?
Well, I'm guessing that I did like 89 when I was younger. Just for certain elements of that, just don't. I got to a point where I don't personally like Michael Keaton as Batman or as Bruce Wayne. So that's me. I get arguments with my friends all the time. They send me texts randomly that Michael Keaton's the best Batman, so I have to deal with that.
I should have invited them on the show.
Yeah, probably. But they all hate Batman anyway, so they just do that to rib me. I really did like the Batman when it was in theaters, and I bought the Blu-ray. I don't have HBO Max all the time because just a lot of apps are expensive.
Yeah.
But I watched it twice. Again, it feels like it's too long though. When I see something and I got to dedicate 2.5 hours to something, that just feels weird. That ruins rewatchability. But I mean, Dark Knight itself, I love the movie, but sometimes that feels a little too long to me too. It's just weird how things I really love it, but that's why I think Begins is more so my favorite, because I could probably watch that on repeat over and over, and any time I could just put it in and it kind of moves faster in my mind. But I guess I will say the Batman, just because it's like 2.5+ hours long, and it's a long time.
It's 3 hours long.
3 hours long. That's a lot of time you got to dedicate to that, even though I really like it. But,
Yeah.
I'd say I'd co-sign the thing about runtime killing rewatchability, but I just rewatched Zack Snyder's Justice League over New Year's weekend. Yeah. That freaking movie's still amazing. I love it so much. I think it's
the
gotten better
pacing is
every time
really,
I've watched
really
it.
good on that. Yeah, I agree with you on that.
But yeah,
it's 4 hours.
it's not one I'm going to put on once a week because of the runtime. But
Yeah.
I get where you're coming from though. If it's something you're really into and enjoying, you'll find a way to make that runtime work. Just like Fellowship of the Ring. I mean, that's what's the extended version of that? 3.5 hours long, roughly.
9 hours a piece.
Yeah. So I mean, just Fellowship itself, I've watched that one way more than I've watched any of the other films in the series, and I will still carve out time once or twice a year to revisit that film because I love it so much. But rewatching the entire saga of Lord of the Rings and or The Hobbit, that's involvement that I'm just not willing to put in more than every 5 years or so at this point. So
yeah.
I mean, runtime aside, because I get that point, but I don't think that's what Todd's asking. I don't think it's about the convenience of rewatching something, because that's its own thing. Because same thing with, like, have I watched Zack Snyder's Justice League as much as I would have liked to? No, because finding 4 hours is tricky. But that doesn't mean I like the movie less. I think it's the movies that you loved initially, and then kind of as time goes on, you're like, oh, maybe I didn't love it as much because the luster wears off. I mean, the biggest one, and I know it's an easy answer, but it's probably the most accurate answer now, especially because the older Batman movies, I've lived with them so long that they've sort of settled into where I, where I think they live in my mind, like the Burton films. I'll rewatch them a lot. I love them. But like in the Schumacher films, like like when I saw Batman Forever in the theater the first time, I loved it just because I wanted to love it so much, and obviously y'all know that has gone down over the years, but I've almost kind of come back around to it. Not that I think it's good, but I will still happily put it on in the background just because it's Batman. But the easiest answer, but probably the most accurate one, is the theatrical version of Justice League. I loved it in the theater because, I mean, kind of like Batman Forever, I wanted to love it, but there's still good things in that movie. Sorry, I still think there are, but it has aged very badly, especially now that we have the Zack Snyder's Justice League. And it's one that I don't think I've pressed play on since the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I'm not saying I wouldn't, but it certainly has aged pretty badly. And then to the point of this email, the Batman has been on HBO Max. I bought the really spiffy Steelbook from Best Buy. I have not pressed play on either of those things. And it's not just because of the runtime. It's just like, I just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
All right. Next email. It's from Mark Bickford. It's kind of long, but that's okay because we don't have a lot of emails. Mark says, hey guys, hope you had a wonderful holidays. Wishing you, your wives, kids, parents, extended family, and everyone else a fabulous new year. I'm only going to say one serious thing. Looking at all that David Zaslav has done and how defensive he was about content cancellations and removals on the November investor call, I really think that the one issue is he has no clue regarding making content that people are passionate about. Sure, his shows are popular, but no one's camping on a sidewalk overnight to be the first to find out what's in store for the new season of House Hunters. I think he just doesn't get that aspect of the stuff on trying to figure out how to get the company profitable again. In reference to the recent email asking about obscure DC symbols, I would suggest the Asbats variant from Nightfall. It's easily Googleable as Azrael Batman logo, and it's just different enough to make a statement. Regarding the who's to blame for the failure of the DCEU question, your team left out one, and that was Warner Brothers marketing. I saw a lot of people online who thought the DCEU was going to be essentially a faithful interpretation of DC canon, and it was not that. And what they should have done in the promo for BVS is outright call it the Empire Strikes Back of the series, because it really was, instead of letting people believe whatever it was they believed was going on. All right, fun questions. First, if you could have Clint Eastwood direct any DC movie, what would it be? 2 rules: it can't be Batman or a member of the Bat family, and it can't be anyone who wears a cowboy hat. Second, for the sake of argument, James Gunn announced that his new younger Superman would be played by Timothée Chalamet. Who would you cast as Batman and Wonder Woman aside him, assuming we want something like a match set age-wise? And what would be your reaction to Chalamet? Finally, you've ranked pretty much everything imaginable, but now you should rank the DCEU film's fancy credits. I don't know the proper term, but I'm referring to the animated credits and music that frequently precede the mid-credit scene. I've attached a PDF that captures a shot from each of them with a note to the music that accompanied them, so you won't have to try to remember. Spoiler, the credits for Aquaman are my favorite, followed by Shazam. I'm looking forward to your thoughts. Have a great week. We have a big James Gunn announcement and a Shazam trailer to look forward to before the month is over. Mark. All right, Mark. Thank you. Oh, lots in here. We'll just go to the questions. So first of all, Clint Eastwood could direct any DC movie. Justin, any thoughts?
Jesus.
I know. It's hard. These are tricky, Mark. I'll give you that.
Just because when I think of Clint Eastwood, I like Western, so throw in some Jonah Hex, I guess.
He said no one who wears a cowboy hat. I think he knew we would say that.
I take utter offense with that because my first choice was Batman and my second choice was Jonah Hex. So he done screwed me on that one.
I know, right?
Oh boy. Geez. It's got to be something grounded, small, and something he could shoot in about 6 weeks. Wow, man.
I know. It's tough.
The Question?
Oh, that's a good answer.
That is a good one.
Yeah, that's a very good answer.
Eastwood is not known for his overuse of special effects or spectacle or any of that. He's a good storyteller. He's a very concise director. He likes to do things in a very short amount of time. He doesn't like to do multiple takes if he doesn't have to. So yeah, you'd have to go with something basic, something not effects laden, probably not much in the supernatural element, if anything. So I think what I'm going to say, and I don't know if this is a cheat or not, is GCPD.
Oh, okay. That's small school.
I'll allow it just because Mark made it hard. So I
know he said Bat Family. I don't know if GCPD quite qualifies there, but I feel like Eastwood's sensibilities would make something really good out of that.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I know, and he says no Bat Family, but I'm like, does that count villains? Because I feel like Eastwood could make a good Batman villain movie, you know?
Yeah.
Something like a Riddler or a Man-Bat or something. But if we're talking about greater DC, the only thing I can think of, and it does have supernatural in it, but it also feels a little more grounded, Constantine.
I thought about that for a second, and I was like, well, Eastwood doesn't like really playing in that realm that I can.
I know, but like I'm trying to think of like other.
But the sensibilities work. Like that's a dark, cerebral type of a thing.
And it could be very character focused.
Yeah. So I could go with that, but I feel like something like GCPD is more to his wheelhouse.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's a good answer too. All right. Timothy Chalamet is Superman. I'll just say I would not like that casting.
Terrible.
Yeah. I like Timothy Chalamet a lot. Not a Superman.
I love that kid as an actor, but I know I should learn this lesson after all these years of these conversations happening, but I just can't picture him in that outfit and looking.
No, he's still too boyish, you know? He's the Man of Steel, not the Boy of Steel.
Some time in the gym or whatever else, I know. If they did it, I would be like, whoa, that's an out of left field choice. And I'll certainly wait and see the finished product or at least a reveal photo in the costume or something. But yeah, it's certainly not where my head goes, even though I think that kid's a very good, very talented actor.
Oh, and he's 27 right now. So
he is. He's not even. It's not even that he's young. He just looks it, you know. And like Superman,
he looks like he's like 18 or 19.
It's Superman. It's in the name. Yeah.
Superboy, maybe I could roll with. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, but it says, who would you cast as Batman and Wonder Woman alongside him? I don't know. Like those are so hard off the cuff. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts of someone who would match up with Timothy Chalamet Superman. I can't think of anyone other than the answers everyone already gives.
Well, the Wonder Woman question obviously is Alexandra Daddario, right? That's...
See, there you go. There it is. Wow. You're the first one. You're the first one who ever thought of that, Jamie.
Andy loves that answer to that question. He loves it. I've not seen him in group chats talk about Jesus. Is anybody ever going to say anything else but this now?
And it's like I don't even hate the casting. It's just like everybody throwing it out there as if they just thought of it. I was like, come on, guys. Yes, I've seen it. I know. We know. It's fine. You don't have to say it anymore.
Well, if we're going to go with Timothy Chalamet, why don't we just throw Harry Styles as Batman and
yes,
Lily Rose Depp as Wonder Woman. Let's just have fun with
There
it,
you go. See Justin coming through in the clutch. That that works.
Y'all thought the Snyderverse was controversial. Shit.
I am not spending a dime to watch that movie. I'll tell you that right now. Either one.
Oh yeah, I mean that works for me because I don't have any better answers. It's funny. I saw the other day, and it got traction. It got like thousands of shares where it was like the ideal new trilogy, and it was Alexandra Daddario's Wonder Woman, Jensen Ackles as Batman, and David Corenswet as Superman. And again, not that I'm against any of those choices, but I'm like, oh, the three most obvious fan casts that we have been hearing for the past year nonstop. Oh, groundbreaking.
Yeah. My choice for Superman is still that dude, and I can't remember his name, and shame on me for it because it was my suggestion when I dropped it in that group chat. The guy that plays like the male lead in The Invitation, he kind of looks like Hecklin and Cavill had a kid. And he's in really good shape. He's got the kind of the look about him. Brendan immediately shot it down. And, I ignore anything he shoots down anyway. But I look at that guy and I can see.
I'm looking now. Thomas Doherty.
I think that's right.
Is he the one that was going around on Twitter as a rumor the other day?
I have no idea.
James Gunn shot down.
I'm raising my hand to the sky right now, literally hand to God. I did not get this idea from anywhere. I was watching The Invitation and he came on the screen and I'm like, that cat looks a little bit like Henry Cavill. He looks a little bit like Tyler Hoechlin. He'd make a pretty good Superman. Let's see what would happen there. So if that came out of, I'm not saying I was the first one to ever come up with the idea, but
it was somebody else. But yeah, there was someone making the rounds a couple days ago of like, this person is rumored as James Gunn's Superman, and it's someone I've never heard of.
Oh yeah, I saw that because
and James Gunn was like, nope, we haven't cast anyone.
And in the coming days, he's going to make some kind of an announcement, and the casting of Superman is definitely not one of them because before he does anything, he wants a finished script and so on and so forth. So
yeah. So anyway, I mean, it's funny. I just watched Pearl the other night, and David Corenswet is in Pearl. And again, I'm not even shitting on the idea because he'd be a great Superman. He looks exactly like Superman. He looks like Cavill 10 years younger, which is what we need, right? So I'm totally for it, but I also am like, yes, we've all seen it. That's fine. Like, so anyway, what's the last question? Oh, ranking the DCE films, the DCEU fancy credits. So yeah, I would call them the stylized credit sequences. And they are really cool. I'm a sucker for those. I'm a sucker for them, DC and Marvel. Honestly, I think they're both really fun. Like, it's always a great way, especially because they usually come at the end of the film to like after the movie, it's sort of a cool like exit music and kind of a way to just immerse yourself in the vibe of the movie before you go out into the sun. I love those. I can't rank them off the top of my head. It could be its own episode, but it's a fun idea because they're super cool.
Off the top of my head,
talking like Shazam.
Yeah, Shazam.
Yeah, like Shazam. It's all the animated sketches, right?
And it's super fun. It's not telling a story or anything, but it's like little mini snippets of interactions between characters and stuff like that. I thought it was a good time, so I liked it.
Yeah. And Aquaman, it's like the really stylized, it looked like it almost looks like models, like really intricate models of locations and things throughout the film, or sculptures. Mm-hmm. Wonder Woman has a really great one.
Black Adam's got a decent one, more or less.
Black Adam one is really cool. And that score, fight me, the score for Black Adam rocks. It's so good.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to fight you because I don't disagree.
Yeah, it's great. So yeah, no, I love all those credit sequences. Ironically, like the Snyder movies don't really have those.
No, they don't.
Man of Steel does not. BVS certainly has a very epic like opening credit sequence, but they don't have like the cool stylized. It's not the same thing.
I don't know if there's any director who does opening sequences, and I don't know if Zach does that himself or if he's got a team that works on it, but I don't know of anybody that I feel personally does it better than that. And
but as far as
that's in any of his movies, like the Dawn of the Dead movie, the opening credits in that are freaking fantastic.
Yeah. No, absolutely. But again, it's a different thing than the stylized,
Sure.
mostly animated closing credits. And it's
Well,
interesting
it's
that
an
Snyder
adjacent-
didn't really do those. Yeah.
That's an adjacent thing. It's not on point, but
Yeah. Because even Suicide Squad had a really crazy one with like all the animated like patterns with all the props, and there was like guns and flames and bones and skulls, and it was, even that was really cool. So
symbolic to each character too. So,
yeah. So I'm a big fan of all of those, but ranking them, it could be its own segment or episode. Justin, any that jump out to you? For me, the two that jump out, I'll just say are Wonder Woman and Aquaman. Those are the two that jump out towards the top, because I think both of those are just amazing. But any that jump out to you, Justin?
Well, mine, the one for me is Shazam, because that one's so different than anything. I mean, it's comedic and it feels part of the movie itself.
Yeah.
So well.
Yeah.
That's the one that always sticks out in my head. Making jokes of itself still in the end credits, So.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Jamie? Any jump to the top?
I think Shazam's probably what I'm going to go with also.
Oh, all right. Nice. All right. One last email from our good pal, Chris, the Objective Geek.
Oh, Lord. I got someplace I got to be. I can't get involved with his questions anymore.
No,
Chris is a great guy, but man, he really makes me raise my blood pressure too often.
Chris, you are listening. We love you. But it was so funny after the last episode, some friends of ours was like, oh man, he loves making you guys work for it. And I'm like, he does. He sure does. But no, Chris is making it up to us. He gives us some lighter choices. Okay.
Oh, thank God.
He says, hey guys, hope all's well. I have two relatively light questions to make up for last time. Number one, this one's more for Andy. What's up with Six Flags? I always thought of them as the theme park for WB, but why haven't they been as successful with WBIP? And number two, he says love, marry, or kill, which is a very nice way of saying it. But we all know what you mean. F, marry, or kill. Talia, Catwoman, or Andrea, and Bruce, Dick, and Jason. So first about Six Flags. I will say this is like Six Flags is they're regional theme parks. They're not the same sort of theme park as a Disney or a Universal. In fact, theme park is even maybe a term that shouldn't be applied to Six Flags, because yes, it's themed, but just it's a lighter theme than something like a Disney or Universal.
And because they're an amusement park than
it's a more of an amusement park, a thrill park, and that's their bread and butter. Their bread and butter are thrill rides, roller coasters for essentially the teenage and young adult demographic. That's who they're really marketing to.
I would liken them much more to a Cedar Point or Kings Island than a Disney.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why. And I do think that as DC fans, we're happy to see any DC representation in a theme park, and that has always been Six Flags. And so I've always been happy for what little bits they do, because it's better than nothing. But when you compare to what Disney and Universal does with other huge IPs, I think we all agree that, man, there's so much opportunity with DC in a theme park environment. And it's something that Six Flags isn't really set up to deliver. They don't really budget to deliver that sort of immersive themed experience, because that's not their business. But as fans, I think that's disappointing. Years ago, I remember having this conversation with Chris Clow on this episode of how do you leverage Batman in theme parks better? And right now, the biggest place and the best example of that is Warner Brothers World in Abu Dhabi. When you guys are bored, look it up. Look up the DC areas at Warner Brothers World in Abu Dhabi on YouTube, because that we're talking fully immersive themed environments for Gotham and Metropolis, and it's amazing. And we would love to see that in the United States. But as long as that license lies with Six Flags, I just don't think we're going to see it. So when I go to Six Flags, I ride Batman the ride, I'll ride the Superman attractions, and I'm happy to see anything and go, oh, that's fun. It has to be graded on a different level than a Universal Studios or a Disney. And then F, marry, or kill. First, Talia, Catwoman, Andrea. Justin?
Well, F would be Catwoman, marry would be Talia, and then kill would be Andrea.
Oh, okay. Jamie?
This is the easiest question I'm going to answer all month. I promise you. Kill Catwoman. F, Talia. Marry Andrea.
Wow. Okay. It's weird. We all have different answers. I say F, Catwoman. Marry Andrea. Kill Talia.
That's crazy that we all have 3 different answers for that. But hey, something to be said for taste and flavor, I guess. And then
Because Talia is always up to no good, like even more than Catwoman. You can trust Catwoman more than you can trust Talia.
Talia's the only one that gave Bruce a son. I'm just saying.
I know, but like that's been haunting us ever since.
Sometimes you just gotta become evil. So you go with Talia, you understand what your role is going to be. You're going to be a bad guy. So you just become a bad guy.
Listen, we've all been there. We've all had the taste for the bad girl at some point in our lives, right? Or boy, either way.
Yeah.
So what was the other one? It was Grayson.
The other one is Bruce, Dick, and Jason.
Oh, that's an easy one too.
That is an easy one, but go ahead.
Wait, you said Bruce, Dick, and Jason, not Tim, Dick, and Jason?
Bruce, Dick, and Jason.
Okay, so F Dick, kill Jason, marry Bruce.
There. Agreed. That's the correct answer. Justin, do you agree or you have your own?
Well, I mean, you can't really marry Bruce because he's never going to love you as much as Crime
But
Fighter.
That's not an unfair point.
I'll just co-sign your answer. That's what I'm going to
do. I mean, you got to kill Jason.
I did kill Jason. Thank you very much.
I know. And you know Dick is good in bed.
I mean, it's in his name.
It's in his name. Have you seen that ass? Come on. So that leaves Bruce to be married, and you're right. It won't be the most emotionally.
It'll be a sad.
It'll be a loveless marriage, but it'll be a comfortable one.
Exactly, and that's okay. I can live with that. He can be out all night, and I'll just be enjoying Wayne Manor. All right. Well, there you go. Thank you, Chris, for those questions.
What a way to end it.
That's it for the Wayne Manor mailbox. If you've got something for us for next time, you can send that to holybatcast@rf4rm.com. That'll do it for this episode. Justin, thanks for making the time this morning. It was great chatting with you. Thanks for being a patron, and thanks for your continued support over the years.
I appreciate it. I thank you for all the time you guys put into this, and it's awesome for me. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Well, if our friends at home want to keep up with you, where can they do that?
Oh, I'm not too big on that stuff. So.
Oh, well, good for you.
So
you live a peaceful, well-balanced life because of that. I promise you, sir.
Yeah.
I think I told you after the last Real Fans episode, and we ended up giving a 5-minute commercial to Letterboxd.
You just got Hunter and Preston another nickel by saying that word. I
know. Catherine joined Letterboxd because she said, I need a social media that doesn't stress me out. And I was like, that is perfect. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Justin, no, it was truly a pleasure. It was great chatting with you this morning.
All right. Thank you.
And Jamie, thank you as well. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter, BatRaider3960. I am on Letterboxd at my name, Jamie Drewley. I am on various Real Fans groups on Facebook and can be found more often than not on this show.
Awesome. I already told you guys where to find me, but thank you as always for joining us, for downloading or streaming the show. Please do subscribe or follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to help us out, something else you can do that costs no money at all it costs is about a minute of your time, is please rate and review us positively on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your shows. That would be awesome. You can go to holybatcast.com or again, follow Holy BatCast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. If you've got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, that email address again is holybatcast@rf4rm.com. Our theme music was created by Gaurav Venkateswar. His work can be found at gvtunes.com. And don't forget to check out our sponsor at manscaped.com. But if you're going to make a purchase, please use that promo code BATSCAPED for 20% off and free shipping. That'll do it. On behalf of Jamie and Justin, I've been Andy. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Holy BatCast is not affiliated with Warner Brothers or DC Entertainment. The views and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
So maybe cats can fly. No wonder Superman's such a happy guy. Flying kind of rocks.
Deploy, shoot, Selena, before you find out just how poorly rocks fly.
Aw, Killjoy.
I've been called worse.
It's a very Catwoman heavy episode. I felt bad making Jamie do this one because I know how much you love Catwoman.
Yeah.
It was just kind of weird how both of them, the storylines are, well, obviously she's a thief, so she's trying to steal something, but I mean, they're just very similar. Lasers in the
yes, I forgot to mention that is essentially we got the same scene in both, which is her weaving through the lasers to get to what she's stealing.
And dealing with ninjas. Basically what the Batman episode was the Cliff's Notes version of Hunted.
Yeah. So for anybody who doesn't want to commit to the hour and 18 minutes, you've got 22 minutes of the Batman episode.
Which is, I think, a better version. So
I co-sign that.
All right, fair enough.